Hey guys, this is EckhartsLadder. Hello and welcome to another video. Today we're talking about a very difficult and dangerous method of travel in the Star Wars galaxy, but one which surprisingly does not involve entering hyperspace. Hyperspace itself is quite a dangerous way to travel. I mean, there are lots of threats, both the ordinary, like a maintenance issue or running out of fuel or hitting an unmapped object, and strange, like traveling through time or encountering extra-dimensional entities, but that's still vastly preferable over the method of transport that we will be discussing today. But first, some background information. As I'm sure many of you guys know, faster than light travel in Star Wars is typically accomplished through the use of hyperdrives and hyperspace. As I mentioned, there were risks associated with hyperdrive, but by the modern era of the Star Wars universe, much of the galaxy was mapped out. There were a few very stable major hyperlanes which traveled the entire galaxy, and routine travel at least was relatively safe. However, if you go back thousands and thousands of years, that was not the case, and one of the major struggles of early interstellar empires and also the Republic was the difficulty of exploring, mapping out, and colonizing space. There were a variety of early methods developed before even the hyperdrive. One was the hyperspace cannon, which, as it sounds, shot ships into hyperspace through a large machine rather than an engine on the ship itself. But another, far more low-tech solution was the idea of sleeper ships. Sleeper ships are extremely common in science fiction. The idea is, especially if you can achieve faster than light speeds, that any long journey can be accomplished by taking a crew and putting them in a cryogenic sleep so that they can survive a journey which would otherwise take many years, perhaps even centuries. Sleeper ships, of course, come with their own benefits and drawbacks, but as we'll be discussing today, sleeper ships, which were still used up until the time of the Empire, were largely a really terrible experience. But first, let's talk about the benefits. The most major benefit of operating a sleeper ship is that you don't have to try to blaze new hyperspace routes. So the thing about hyperspace is that upon the development of the engine, the whole galaxy didn't just open up, it still needed to be mapped out. One of the ways that the galaxy was mapped was by taking extremely risky, short hyperspace jumps and basically just hoping for the best. Now, by the Imperial era, this could be somewhat improved through the use of unmanned probes, but still, mapping in that sense was extremely dangerous and also cost prohibitive. With sleeper ships, you don't need to actually enter hyperspace. You basically point at where you want to go, you make any calculations to compensate for stellar bodies or whatever else, then you put the crew to sleep and you hopefully get there. And that's the benefit. You don't have to go through hyperspace. That's the only benefit. Everything else is basically the harsh reality. And the most obvious downside of sleeper ships is that, well, the journey is going to take an extremely long time. Many of the jumps performed routinely by hyperdrives in Star Wars would take an individual tens of thousands of light years. If a ship is not moving at faster than light speeds, that means that the base time for that journey is 10,000 years. That means by the time you arrive at your destination, not only will your ship probably be destroyed, but hyperdrives will have been invented anyway. I will say though, Star Wars is a little bit weird about this. Some books have described ships as moving faster than the speed of light, even outside of hyperspace, so it's possible that we have like a Mass Effect situation where ships can go faster than light without going through the mass relays, for example, or without going through hyperspace, but on a stellar scale or galactic scale, it's still not very fast. That also gives you a Halo-like situation. The UNSC during the war didn't have a very fast method of slip space, so they routinely would also cryogenically freeze passengers and crew on starships. So yeah, I guess that is a possibility that Star Wars sleeper ships were also using some form of FTL, but who knows? I mean, just for reference, in our galaxy, the nearest star to Earth besides our sun is Proxima Centauri, and that alone is 4 light years away. So yeah, any journey to another star system, unless the Star Wars galaxy is terribly compact, which to be fair may be possible in the core, where a variety of the early exploration without hyperdrives took place, is going to take a long time. But the fact that you're going on probably a one-way journey where your relatives may be dead by the time you arrive is just one issue. And the real issue with sleeper ships comes when you realize that they were continually used even in a time period when there were better options. Sleeper ships were still used into the time of the Empire, and that's pretty crazy, but true. The Empire, for example, example, would routinely use sleeper ships when forcing the colonization of a system beyond Imperial space. And what did that look like? Well, the Empire would go to a population, they would basically kidnap, take people, put them on a sleeper ship, point them in the right direction, and force them to colonize the planet when they arrived, or else die, I guess. And using a sleeper ship in the modern Star Wars galaxy is even worse. For one, you're using a sleeper ship provided by the Empire, it's not going to be comfortable, and you may not even be asleep for the journey. We see in the Crystal Star, for example, that one individual was tortured by the Empire and hooked up to a really terrible machine for the entirety of the trip. Slaver ships, and I also am going to guess that this would be true going back to the Old Republic and before, were also often the target of slavers. And from a grim sort of perspective, that makes sense. You've got this sardine can full of unconscious people. Typically, there won't even be a single person alive on a sleeper ship. It'll be run by droids, especially on long journeys. It's not going to be able to defend itself. All you really need to do is move in, take the pods to your own ship, or subdue the people as they're sleeping, and you've got free slaves, which you can now sell on the open market. And you've got to ask yourself, why would you use sleeper ships then? Well, there are a few reasons. First of all, they probably would have been used by primitive or cash-strapped civilizations, even those who are connected to the galaxy at large, who just don't have the capacity to make ships with hyperdrives, but still need to work with the greater galaxy. And I mean, when hyperdrives exist, you're operating at like 1/10,000,000th of the speed. They could also be used for exploration, and that was frequently the case with the Empire. And again, you use sleeper ships because you don't have to navigate through hyperspace. You sort of set the trajectory, and if there's anything on the way that needs to be avoided, well, the onboard computer can do that in real space, but probably not hyperspace. And in the worst case scenario, you can wake up the crew and adapt to a situation much better than at FTL speed. But still, in my opinion, easily the worst way to travel a galaxy. What's the best way, you might ask? Well, the Ang-T monks pretty much instantly teleported their ships wherever they want, which was pretty cool. But guys, that's all for me today. I hope you enjoyed this video. Until next time, be safe, have a good one, and may the Force be with you.